Chapter 4, Douluo Continent. Old Jack was clearly very patient with Tang San. In his heart, Tang San was the most well-behaved child in the village. It was hard to imagine how such a father could have such a child. Great Soul Master is a title in the ranking system of Soul Masters. Soul Masters are the most noble profession on the continent. They can be powerful warriors or possess outstanding auxiliary abilities. Regardless of the type of Soul Master, their ranks are categorized under the same title system. Soul Masters possess their own soul power. Based on the strength of this power, they are divided into 10 titles, with each title having 10 ranks. At the beginning, after awakening their martial soul, everyone is called a soul scholar. If the martial soul can be cultivated and the soul power reaches level 11, they advance to the next title, which is Soul Master. The Great Soul Master is the third title in the entire ranking system. Once one reaches the level of Great Soul Master, they are considered a fairly strong Soul Master. That's the general structure of the 10 titles. Soul Scholar, Soul Master, Great Soul Master, Soul Grandmaster, Soul Sect, Soul King, Soul Emperor, Soul Sage, Soul Douluo, and titled Douluo. The name of our Douluo continent originates from this system. According to legend, titled Douluos who reach level 90 and above can grant themselves a unique title, and they are considered invincible beings. A look of pride flashed in old Jack's eyes. 100 years ago, our Holy Soul Village once produced an 8th rank Soul Sage. Even in the entire Nuoding City, or in the entire Fasno province, that's an extremely rare achievement. Tang Hao, who stood nearby, curled his lips and said, "Old Jack, that's just a legend." As if someone had stepped on his tail, old Jack became furious. "What do you mean just a legend? Legends come from truth. Tang Hao, you've been in this village for 6 years. You should understand how important that Soul Sage is to us. If I hear you insult the Soul Sage one more time, I'll kick you out of this village. If it weren't for little San, do you think I'd willingly come to your filthy forge?" Tang Hao didn't get angry. He kept tapping on the farming tool in his hand, as if he hadn't heard anything Jack said. Jack glared at him fiercely, then turned to Tang San and said, "You must never become like your father, so spiritless. All right, I'm leaving now. I'll come pick you up in 3 days." With that, old Jack stormed out of the blacksmith shop. "Dad!" Tang San cried out instinctively. "What?" Tang Hao looked at him coldly. Seeing the coldness in his father's eyes, Tang San swallowed the words he was about to say and bowed his head, returning to his room to continue practicing, determined to strike 10,000 times. Night fell. After dinner, Tang Hao wiped his mouth and, as usual, went out. For him, going out to drink had become routine. And the wine he drank was always the cheapest kind. "Dad, wait a moment." Tang San didn't even have time to clean up the bowls and chopsticks as he hurriedly called after Tang Hao. "What is it?" Tang Hao glared at him. Although Tang Hao had never hit Tang San, for some reason, Tang San was naturally a bit afraid of his father. Even as someone who had lived 2 lifetimes, he couldn't shake this feeling. "That thing. I've finished forging it 10,000 times. Tang San said. "Oh." A flash of light appeared in Tang Hao's eyes. "Bring it here and let me take a look." "Yes." Tang San ran back to his room and quickly brought out a piece of iron. The piece of iron was entirely black. Although it didn't have a specific shape, each surface appeared shiny, with a faint dark gleam. It was roughly a quarter the size of the original iron block. Tang San used the Xian Tian skill to lift it without feeling strained. Tang Hao took the iron block and held it up to his eyes, carefully examining it. "Now do you understand what I meant?" Tang San nodded. 100 refinements make steel. Even if the metal is of poor quality, through constant forging, it will become excellent. "Father, were you trying to teach me this principle?" Tang Hao realized that his son had surprised him more than once in recent days. He handed the iron block back to him and said, "Then keep going. Once you forge it down to the size of a fist, I'll come check." After saying that, he turned and left. Originally, he had said he would teach Tang San how to forge after 10,000 hammer strikes. But now he seemed to have gone back on his word. However, Tang San didn't mind. He was just thinking about what his father had said. Fist-sized? Could such a large block of iron really be forged down to the size of a fist? Although it was already a quarter of its original size, Tang San knew very well that as forging continued, the density of the iron would keep increasing, making it harder and harder to reduce in volume. To refine it down to the size of a fist was not something that could be done with just 10,000 hammer strikes. 100 refinements make steel. Then what would 10,000 refinements make? A gleam of determination flashed in Tang San's eyes. He stepped back into his room. Soon, the clanging sound of hammering echoed once again from the forge. 3 days passed quickly. As usual, Tang San still climbed the mountain for his daily chores. When he returned home, apart from cooking, he spent all his remaining time forging the iron. The iron had become extremely solid. His hammering speed continued to increase. With the help of Shin Tian's skill, he was able to recover his strength quickly and maintain the continuous forging process. Little San, Grandpa is here to pick you up. Old Jack arrived at the forge. Perhaps because he disliked Tang Hao, he didn't even enter and instead called for Tang San from outside. Tang San glanced back. His father had just finished breakfast. Tang Hao said indifferently, "Go. Don't delay cooking lunch." Tang San responded, then walked out of the forge. Under Old Jack's lead, Tang San followed him to the spirit hall in the center of the village. Of course, this spirit hall was nothing more than a large wooden house. Because everyone possessed a martial soul. Every year there would be children undergoing martial soul awakening. Therefore, spirit halls could be found all over the Douluo Continent. Naturally, these were just branch halls. And their ranks varied. This year, a total of 8 children in Holy Soul Village were undergoing martial soul awakening, and Tang San was the last one brought by Old Jack. The village children didn't pay much attention to Tang San. Disdain for the poor and favor for the rich wasn't something exclusive to nobles, it was even more apparent among commoners. As someone who had lived 2 lives, Tang San's actual age had long surpassed 30, so naturally he had no desire to associate with these children. For him, extra time was better spent on cultivation. As a result, he had no peers or friends. Aside from village elder Jack and the 8 children, there was another young man in the spirit hall. He looked to be in his early 20s, with sharp brows and bright eyes, very handsome. He wore a white outfit with a black cloak on his back. On the center of his chest was the character soul, about the size of a fist. This was the standard uniform of spirit hall personnel. On the left side of his chest was a badge engraved with the image of a longsword. There were 3 swords on the badge, each positioned differently. Old Jack seemed very familiar with soul masters. The 3 swords represented a 3rd-rank title, Great Soul Master, and the longsword indicated that this spirit hall official was a battle soul master. "How are you, respected battle soul master? I'm sorry to trouble you again this time." Old Jack respectfully bowed to the young man. The young man revealed a look of indifferent arrogance between his brows, gave a slight nod as a half-hearted bow and said coldly, "I don't have much time, let's begin now." Old Jack said, "Very well. Children, this is a battle soul master from New Oding City. He will now help you awaken your martial souls. You must cooperate well with the master during the martial soul awakening. Grandpa hopes that one of you will become a soul master." The young man said a little impatiently, "All right, you said the same thing last year. If becoming a soul master were that easy. I've been to 6 villages and haven't found a single child with soul power. Not even a compatible martial soul." A trace of sorrow appeared in Old Jack's eyes as he sighed. Yes, only those who inherit from major sects have an easier time becoming soul masters. For commoners like us, it's truly difficult. Shaking his head, he turned and walked out of the spirit hall. The young man's gaze fell on the 8 children in front of him. As a patrol deacon from the spirit hall, assisting commoners with martial soul awakenings was his duty. He was already quite used to it. "Children, form a line." His tone toward them was gentler and warmer. The 8 children lined up in front of him, with Tang San standing at the far left. Compared to the others, his build was a bit thinner and smaller. The young man smiled and said, "My name is Su Yontao. I'm a level 26 Great Soul Master and will be your guide. I will now conduct the martial soul awakening. Remember, no matter what happens, don't be afraid." As he spoke, Su Yontao opened his bag on the table and took out 2 items, 6 round black stones and a glowing blue crystal ball. Su Yontao arranged the 6 black stones on the ground in a hexagon formation, then motioned for the first child on the right to stand in the center. "Don't be afraid. Close your eyes and carefully feel it." As he said that, Su Yuntao's eyes suddenly lit up. In front of the children's astonished expressions, he called out, "Lone Wolf, Possession." A soft green light was first released from his forehead, rising up from his brow and flowing into his hair. Su Yuntao's hair, originally black, instantly turned gray, then quickly grew longer. Fur of the same color appeared on both his arms. His body seemed to swell, muscles bulging all over. The special outfit of the spirit hall was very elastic and didn't tear as his body expanded. His eyes turned a deep green, and his 10 fingers transformed into claws glowing with a faint cold light. 2 glowing rings rose from beneath his feet, cycling upward toward his head, one white, one yellow, eerily beautiful. The boy standing in the center of the hexagon saw Su Yuntao's transformation and screamed in fear, trying to run away. With his glowing green eyes, Su Yuntao looked intimidating. But he grabbed the child with one hand and said, "Don't move. Don't be afraid. This is my martial soul, Lone Wolf. If any of you become a soul master in the future, you'll be able to use similar powers." The only one who didn't seem overly frightened was Tang San. However, the moment Su Yuntao's transformation began, Tang San immediately circulated his inner energy throughout his body, /. Amazed and intrigued, Tang San grew increasingly curious. Gray fur appeared on Su Yuntao's body, and his eyes turned a bright green, the distinct features of a wolf. Could martial soul possession mean a person actually transforms into a wolf demon? No, that wasn't quite right. It must be that he was using the power of the wolf itself. So that meant the profession of soul master was about utilizing the abilities of one's martial soul. For the first time, Tang San found himself genuinely interested in the soul master profession. He was now a little impatient to find out what his own martial soul would be. Su Yuntao moved his hands rapidly, sending 6 faint green streams of light into the 6 black stones on the ground. Instantly, a layer of radiance burst forth from the stones, forming a pale golden light barrier that enveloped the child standing inside.